Good morning, world. This is Steve Rao, the host of Roku TV, Pod TV's World Politics, soon to be a part of the Fox News network. And today, I want to welcome you all to our wonderful show. Today, I want to begin our show by saying that the world seems increasingly unsettled. From the Middle East to Ukraine, from the Strait of Hormuz to Gaza, we are watching conflicts that are no longer isolated regional crises. They are connected. They affect energy prices, inflation, global trade, America's alliances, and ultimately they affect the security and prosperity of every one of us. But tonight, I want to step back and have our team of analysts answer the bigger question. Are we entering a new era of global politics, one where military power is replacing diplomacy, alliances are becoming transactional, and economic security is becoming just as important as military security? This evening, for about 30 minutes, we're going to have our panel come on, and we're going to talk a little bit about these different conflicts in the world and what does it mean for our world order? What are they teaching in political science class today in the United States? I can't wait to go to a class at NC State or Chapel Hill where my niece is studying to sit in on an international relations class, because certainly it has changed from when I graduated from Emory University in 1992, when President Jimmy Carter actually lectured in one of my classes on U.S. foreign policy towards the Middle East. What would he be saying right now? What would any former U.S. president be saying? Well, let's begin today's show. Mark, bring on the panel and let's get started.
Hello.
So welcome everyone to the show. And today we have with us Sasha Starr, our political analyst who hosts Ukraine in Iran with me as an analyst. We have James Eads, one of our analysts, Rick Rosner, one of our analysts on World Edition, and Mark Lee, whom I call the Wizard of Oz, the guy behind the scenes that pulls the curtain. And he's got to make me look better as we go to a more professional network, but that's okay. We're gonna step it up. So let's go ahead and get started, guys. I want to start with segment one, which is the United States and Iran. The diplomatic clock is basically run out, folks, right? I mean, the 60-day negotiating period between the U.S. and Iran has expired. President Trump says there are no talks planned. He keeps saying they want peace. They're saying no. And at the same time, Iran and Oman are working toward an arrangement involving shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. But the Strait of Hormuz is in no way close to being open. And oil prices are moving. Markets are reacting. Businesses are worried about transportation costs. Consumers are feeling it at the gas pump. And Reuters today reported that Brent crude has moved above $91 a barrel. So I ask my esteemed colleagues, what do you think about Iran? What should we be doing? And is this a war we should be fighting?
I was thinking about two leaders, Trump and Putin. Putin, smart guy, highly experienced in politics, a former KGB guy, student of history. Putin, a smart guy, gets involved in a morass of a war, gets it wrong with Ukraine. And compared to Putin, Trump, a schmuck, a con man, an idiot, who gets talked into going into Iran by Netanyahu, what chance? If a smart guy like Putin can't win a war, what chance does a schmuck like Trump have of prevailing against a regime that's been in place for 47 years and has survived 10 years of war total war against Iraq? He's got the best he can do, I think, is to withdraw, claim victory, and let Iran do what it's going to do, which is charge every tanker $1 million to go through the strait.
Thank you. James E., picking up on that point, what are your thoughts before we go to Sasha on Iran?
Yeah, I also think that, this was a war of choice and one that was a mistake. And Putin also thought that Kiev would be taken in a couple of weeks. And so everybody can make mistakes in this, which is another argument against war. And what we need is not so much, we have a global marketplace, but we need a global community wherein we have to build allies so that we have people that will support the rule of law, which we are ignoring both domestically and internationally. We've kidnapped one foreign leader and we assassinated another. This is not the scientist of the United States that I was brought up to be taught about and brought up to be proud of. So what we have to do is stop waging war and throw the politicians who are in favor of it out. We have a Department of War now rather than a Department of Defense. What is going on with this country? We got what we deserved because a lot of people didn't go to the polls, didn't go to the voting booths and vote last election. And this time they've got to go and vote. That is the power that you have as a U.S. citizen. Vote these bums out.
Fantastic. Sasha Starr, you have, I would say, the most international experience running the Ukraine show. We're going to talk about Ukraine in a few minutes, but to what extent, what is your comments about some of these global conflicts?
Okay, so I think you are into something when you said that there should be or will be a new world order. Now let's analyze exactly what it is. So instead of wars, there should be a diplomacy which would resolve many issues. However, how you can do the diplomatic route when no one in the world trusts United States of America? Look
Right.
at that. Look at the memorandum signed by Trump himself on June 17th. It expired, I think, yesterday. And he started to wavering from the memorandum basically next day after it was signed. But there is even more interesting issue. For example, in 1994, there was a Budapest memorandum, according to which Ukraine gave all its nuclear weapons and more to Russia. And who guaranteed that was Russia itself, England, and United States. So we know what's happened next. Russia was invaded by Ukraine, and now it's fighting Russia. And so where are the guarantees of United States?
Right.
Well, on our program on Pop TV, one of our quite authoritative guests taught me a lesson, which is, you're talking about agreement memorandum, but it hasn't been ratified by US Senate, so there is nothing. It's not a memo, it's nothing, it's a piece of paper.
Right.
I would like to ask you, Steve, and all others together, when US signed that Budapest Memorandum in 1994, was there ever intent to ratify that memorandum? Or it was from the moment it was signed, it was like, oh, the stupid Ukrainians, they don't know the details. Oh, they will go over it and then we will have them and say, oh, guys, well, you have to learn something next time. You'll be more careful. Is that type of a world, that type of democracy we would like to see?
And that goes to the point. I mean, that's the point. I'd have to go back and study the Budapest, but I think you bring up a good point. When I say, are relationships and alliances transactional? Are they really alliances? Are we signing things for just, a ceremony, treaty signing or ratification, or are we really going to follow through? Because I think trust is important, and alliances are important. When you look at World War II, many of these alliances. But now I think we reached a point, even back then, where is the United States foreign policy one where we're just waving the wand, and then I don't think we're coming across sincere to the world, and I think that's That's the challenge. That's my take on it. I don't know if anyone else has it.
I just want to clarify, how did Ukraine end up with all these nuclear weapons in 1994? Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union. The government out of Moscow had placed 4,200 tactical nuclear weapons in Ukraine, making Ukraine the third largest nuclear power in the world. Ukraine didn't want that, and so they just wanted to be an independent country for the first time in a long time. So they gave back thousands of nukes.
In exchange for what?
They were supposed to be protected. Everybody was supposed to sign off on a deal where you give back these nukes, which you could use to rule the world, give those back to Russia, and we won't invade you and we'll protect you. And that turns out to be 30 years later bullshit.
In fact, we're going to come back to the Strait of Hormuz, but I want to bring up another, my thesis is that military power can destroy infrastructure, sanctions can bring down, economies, but neither one by itself is creating a sustainable peace. And as I read, that's kind of my theory as I put these things together. You got to have somebody to sit at the table and make diplomacy. And so let's shift the focus. And Mark Lee and I had talked about this earlier in the week, but China hasn't shot a missile in any war, and they have diversified their economy. 70% of their dependence is on foreign oil, but 30% of their energy production is coming from electricity. They're investing in rail, transit, rapid investments in AI. So do you all believe that this is, and also geopolitically, they're strengthening the relationships with Oman. They're strengthening the relations with the United Arab Emirates. It seems to me that this world is looking a lot more like it's China out there trying to lead, not having to deploy resources in war. And in this case, two wars. We're going to talk about Ukraine before the hour is over. What are your thoughts on that? I'll start with you, James E., then Sasha, then Rick, and Mark Lee.
Yeah, China is eating our lunch in many ways that are very significant in the modern world. The electronic vehicles that they're producing are cheaper, and their storage capacity for the batteries is lapses, and they're also doing much better at AI. And we haven't talked about that much, but one of the African leaders was asked, why are you doing business with China? And he says, China's here. So they're not just building relationships with the Saudi Arabians, they're building relations in African countries that have sometimes rare earth minerals, or some of the minerals and resources that the modern day equipment requires. So they've been thinking ahead, and they haven't been mouthing off in public and bullying and blustering. They have been quietly working to build a modern society. They just lost. A leader that led them into the marketplace just passed in China, but they have their ups and downs. They have an aging population. They're not without their own problems, but what they're doing is quietly doing what the future requires, while the United States is looking backwards to the past. So yes, China is going to be one of the geopolitical dominant figures in the near future.
Sasha and Rick, and Mark Lee, any questions? We're trying to move.
Yeah, so, all right, West Side Story. There's a song called Cool in West Side Story where the lyrics are, boy, boy, crazy boy, get cool, boy. If China just stays cool, China wins. China beats us with economic dominance. China, it wants Taiwan. Is it going to go to war for Taiwan? Maybe, if the U.S. looks weak enough, but China should play it cool, boy, and just let everybody else fall to pieces.
Yeah, definitely doing that and everything like that. Hey, Steve, I was going to bring up another point that unfortunately I think the Trump family and the Trump appointees are going to milk what I'm getting to bring up to death and everything along those lines, because I know that earlier you mentioned the idea of Jimmy Carter and you seeing him at Emory when you were at Emory in the early 90s. And I remember seeing a few of the people associated with Watergate, like Dean and Ehrlichman and a couple of others, when I was at Marquette in the early 80s, because that was shortly after Watergate and all along those lines. But as y'all know, I work at a Cultural Arts Center and all along those lines. But I'm thinking that one of the things that we don't talk about is the transactional nature of politics, because a lot of these people that we don't like and that a lot of people don't like, or even those that we do like that might fall in the category like AOC and a number of others, they're going to make a whole lot of money because they're going to hit the speaking circuit and all along those lines. So that's where it becomes transactional, because I don't know how much when you go to see your niece at UNC, but if there are people visiting, I imagine they're going to get paid. I know that we've got Ta-Nehisi Coates, and I think he's getting something like $30,000 to come to my Cultural Arts Center and all along those lines. So I guess the question is, how much are we going to see a number of these political figures, including folks that we don't like Hedges and a number of others that are going to make a claim, because it costs a lot to see these folks.
It becomes transactional. People, we're getting close to the midterms. Voting is going to start in about 5 weeks in some states. Election is in November. Then we get the presidential elections. People start, stumping out there for the nomination for president. So it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen. What's going to happen with these presidential candidates. Who has the foreign policy experience? Is it going to be Mark Kelly leading the pack with, United States Senator? Is it Scheer with the domestic policy? Is it a combination of foreign policy and executive power to bring the Democrats back? But then you have AOC, who's just a superstar, 36, talking about freezing her eggs, breaking up the boyfriend, social media on fire. She could be president. I mean, so it's just transactional, and I think that that's the way it is. But I want to shift to Ukraine, and I want to get Sasha's perspective. We're trying to break the show down into 5 segments, so whatever we don't finish, we'll come back to. But let's hit Ukraine, and we're going to come back to that issue. But I'm going to start with Sasha, as our expert on this. The United States has been supporting Ukraine with military demands, or at least saying so. But the reality is, we see a pattern here. Russia's continuous campaign against Ukrainian energy. Ukraine is responding with strikes against Russian military targets. We're seeing drones being used more. And now we're hearing warnings from strategists that Russia may, as we come closer to the winter, use energy infrastructure as a weapon against Ukraine. And so, the challenge is America is fighting 2 wars here, Sasha. Do you believe that this is going to make it difficult for the U.S. to make a strategy? And where do you believe the United States of America can help Ukraine more? Is it providing them more funding for defense systems, deterrence? Is it providing them on the front line? Or are you just, at this point, not believing they're going to do anything?
It's interesting that the best friend now of Ukraine and who helps tremendously is United Kingdom.
Yeah.
United Kingdom is absolutely ignoring any possible threats from Russia, so whether they might use nuclear weapons or anything like this, it's all noise to Great Britain, and they're supplying now Ukraine with the incredibly powerful drones that can reach 1,500 to 2,000 kilometers, if not farther. They're already being used. Storm Shadow are being used. But United Kingdom now made a determination to use more and more drones, and they are building more and more powerful drones. Whereas United States, they are scared of a Russian nuclear attack to death. It's a death. That's how scared they are, starting from Trump to his cabinet and so on. They are paralyzed by thinking that likely it will not happen, but it could happen. So we have to be friends with Russia. We have to send Kushner and Witkov. We have to send them to negotiate with Putin. God forbid Ukraine will win war against Russia. So what's going to happen? Russia will fall apart in the 6, maybe 8 different countries, and some of them will have nuclear weapons, and one of them could use these nuclear weapons against United States, believe it or not. Oh my God, what a horrible thing to do. So they are not helping Ukraine. The best what they can do is to sell some weapons to European Union for their money. And
European Union has stepped up there. Yeah, European Union has stepped up. European Union has stepped up their support. So, I mean, that's a good news, right? Europe and Britain and these other countries. But
Oh yeah, it did. Yes, it did, and United Kingdom is definitely the leader, not only supplying finances to acquire American weapons, but providing their own quite sophisticated weapons to Ukraine. It's working extremely well, and Ukraine is now wrecking house to Russia. I don't think that Russia will hold on more than a few weeks.
I have
And
an idea.
by the way, electric grid of what you're saying that Russia will do to Ukraine to have this horrible winter,
One,
Ukraine can
right.
do exactly the same thing to Russia.
One thing, we have 9 more minutes left, guys. I've got a hard stop, but and now I'm going to shift to the other two analysts. So, people are getting very tired. I mean, we pray for Ukrainian people who have died. Russia's lost about 500,000 soldiers. Their economy is in shambles. I think we can all say it's safe to say that a peace would be good. But what is the path to peace? Do you believe that it would be stopping the fighting where it's existing, even though Ukraine would be smaller? What kind of security measures do we need to put in place? What do you think a peace deal should look like, and how would we sell it to Trump? Of course, I know Sasha and I are skeptical, but he could say, "Hey, I pulled off peace in the world, a largest war since World War II." What do you guys think?
I'm not sure peace would be preferable. Right now, frickin' Ukraine has sacrificed to keep Russia spinning its wheels and squandering its resources for more than 4 years.
Right.
Russia at peace might look elsewhere. This war, this endless, war via drones, shows the world that war isn't effective. It's a constant reminder that maybe we don't want to do this. Trump ignored this warning and went into a war that is stalemated. And right now, you asked about the New World Order. The New World Order is angry, fragmented, and stupid thanks to social media, which polarizes people.
And on Thursday, we're going to talk a little bit more about AI. We're going to try to bring AI in the show more. But don't you believe that AI and technology is also affecting the world order in terms of the economic security of jobs?
Yes. The last time we had an angry and stupid world was right after World War I, where everybody was pissed and everybody was brain damaged from the Spanish flu. And within 20 years, you got World War II. Now, I'm hoping it doesn't work out this way, but we are made stupid and distracted. We're not even having sex anymore. We have a worldwide baby shortage because everybody is on their phone. So,
oh, right. God, I love it. Hey, we're gonna go. We got 7 more minutes left. Right. I kind of feel I'm getting ready for football season. I feel like hosting the show is like Mahomes on the football field. We're getting world politics in 30 minutes. The clock is running out. I got 7 minutes to get us to the end zone. Let's do this. So let's talk about alliances in the world. I mean, for decades, World War II, the U.S. has built a global network of partnerships. NATO, relationships in Asia, alliances in the Middle East, economic partnerships around the world. We didn't talk about India, and I think next week we're going to talk about India because India, that's why I'm wearing my orange tie. Indian Independence Day was this week. 8 years of independence, but now India is the 3rd largest economy or fastest growing economy in the world. They've been very quiet, but slowly they're rising. They're increasing their power in AI, increasing their power in defense. But today these relationships are being tested. And I'm going to play devil's advocate. So President Trump says, okay, here's why. Our allies should contribute, and they're not contributing enough. They should pay more of the burden. They should invest in their own defense. What do you all think about it? Why would be President Trump wrong? I'm playing devil's advocate here. Talk to me about why you think that is not the right approach.
Well, one thing is peace is preferable to war. There's no question about that. But we have to remember that we have autocratic rulers in place. And like Putin, for example, people think he's a communist. No, man, he's not a communist. If you take Russian history, he's a czar. He's in control. What he says goes. So, and he does not care about the suffering of the Russian people, and the people in Russia are suffering. Now, you look at the regime in Iran, and, they don't care about their people suffering. Their people are suffering very badly. And in the United States, Trump has said he doesn't care. And so when we have people that are not democratic oriented, but autocratic oriented. We're ruling from the top down, and what they say goes. They don't have to care. Now, the only power that we have is to vote and to say we want to change this picture. Go ahead, Steve.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt. I mean, Sasha, don't you agree that having allies may not be in our, sometimes the whole world or U.S. is helping Europe build back after the war, creating economic partnerships, leveraging our diplomatic relationships so that we can show the world that we're a leader. Do you believe that that is in the best interest of the world, that the United States would be better working with our allies than saying, we don't need anyone, America first, I'm going to do what I want? What do you think,
I
Sasha?
think I would prefer, while Trump and Republicans are at power, I would prefer not to discuss United States, whether it's an ally, whether it's anything that you can deal with. The United States right now has to be avoided at all cost. You cannot trust US, you cannot negotiate with US, and you have to just block it and act as it doesn't exist. That's what actually Canada does with its trade negotiations with the US, which tomorrow midnight is a deadline and so on. And Trump will do his usual chicken out stuff. Tomorrow we'll use Taco.
Yeah.
It's coming tomorrow.
He's going to do that and everything.
Well, my last question before we close out the show.
Okay, so you can go a little bit over if need be, because I know that even the last show, David ducked out, and if you got to duck out, I can maintain if we want to go a little bit longer and everything along those lines, because it seemed like some people had some points to make and everything like that.
Yeah, I'm going to stay longer next time. Normally we end around 5:30, but I'm going to close out my thoughts before I get on to another meeting. But the bottom line is that I really believe today that the world really is at a crossroads.
Yes.
We're living through enormous transition. China is rising, India is rising, Russia has been challenging economic security. The Middle East is more unstable than it's been in years. In my adult lifetime, technology, particularly AI, is changing economics. It's affecting our national security. For the first time, these global conflicts are affecting economic security at home more than we've ever seen. And America is reconsidering its role in the world because of a guy by the name of Donald J. Trump, the 45th and 47th president of the United States. The question is, America, should we confuse strength with isolation? Is military power the same as diplomatic power? Because sometimes the strongest country doesn't necessarily mean that it's in the best interest of their own country at home. And so that's my question to you on world politics. How do we get to a more stable world? How do we get to more secure?
With regard to the U.S., the U.S. spends more than $1 trillion a year on military, more than the next 9 countries combined, and to no avail. We can't win a war against Iran, and until we get somebody in the presidency who's not crazy, and until we get safeguards to make sure we don't get another crazy person in the presidency. Yet Sasha is right. The U.S. is an unreliable partner. We had 4 years of Biden, a reasonable guy for the most part, but that didn't protect us from Trump coming back.
Well, my final analysis. Thank you so much, Rick. My final analysis today, what I was trying to say is that, and I want to follow up next week on Thursday with some of these topics, but in my personal opinion, as the moderator of the show, America should never confuse diplomacy with weakness. I think that's part of the problem. President Trump's foreign policy is based on military strength at all costs. The strongest country in the world should be capable of doing both. And the United States of America used to do both. We need a military that's strong to deter aggression. We need an economy strong enough to compete. We need to be leaders in technology and innovation. We need secure energy. We need resilient supply chains. And we need diplomacy to be strong enough to prevent conflicts from becoming wars. Because ultimately, leadership just isn't about having the loudest voice in the room or who's carrying the biggest stick. It was President Theodore Roosevelt who once said, "Speak softly, but carry a big stick." Sometimes the big stick can be diplomacy. That's the challenge of America. Are we going to be able to bring the people on the table diplomatically around the world? It's not just about winning the next conflict. It's about providing a stable world for all of us. And my challenge to President Donald Trump and Secretary Rubio is that they are failing in this job. And I think the American people deserve better. Do you? I'm Steve Rao. I thank you so much for listening to my show. I'm going to leave a little bit early today, but I'll be here. But I hope you're enjoying the new style of moderation. We're going to up the studio. Thank you for being on World Politics. That's my final take. And have a great evening wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So we're going to get
Well
on out of here. So yeah, we'll wrap up this show. So y'all have a good one, and we'll wrap this up right now.